you said you were a pretty big hip hop head back in the 80s and
I
90s.
was in a golden era, I think, like, yeah.
Yeah. So the guy I'm gonna ask you about is not part of that era, but it's arguably he was very much influenced by it,
Mhm,
which is Kendrick Lamar.
mhm,
And you mentioned Robert Glasper, who played on to Pimp a Butterfly,
yeah,
like him, Kamasi
Paris
Washington,
Martin,
Paris Martin.
yeah,
Uh, Safe to say that jazz obviously has a huge influence on the way that Kendrick approaches music,
yeah,
or at least did it for that album,
yeah,
because he's kept a lot of the jazz influences even past To Pimp a Butterfly. As a distinguished jazz drummer and producer, band leader, what stands out to you when you listen to Kendrick Lamar's music? Like, do you get like the subtle jazz influences? Do you like do you when it hits you, like, does anything pop into your head? Like, oh, I see like where he's taking this from, or that, like
mhm.
anything like that when you hear his music?
You know, it's funny, so I just played at the Library of Congress, like, last week, just a few days ago, and then part of that performance with the singer Somi that I performed with, they pulled things from the archives, and then we got to see, like, some, whatever, things from Uganda, Rwanda, letter Hazel Scott stuff, Nina Simone papers. They had an exhibit in a case where, like, Maya Angelou had written a letter to Max Roach and Abbie Lincoln about how Malcolm X's killing affected
Mm,
her. Like, it was just amazing stuff. And I think that, you know, culturally for me, like, especially like black culture in that period where it was like so many different things, everybody was connected and they all shared these things. I feel like I get that with Kendrick. You know what I mean? Like I feel like it's not just jazz influence. I feel like he raps like a jazz artist. You know what I mean?
mm,
Like it's just like somebody like Maya Angelou, like it just the way they use language and form sentences and is very similar to how we craft solos and how we craft music, and jazz is this mishmash of all the things, and it's all acceptable to create this medium. That's how it was formed. It's like all these pieces of different music and it came to create this genre. um so in the spirit of that, I feel like Kendrick, not only he has that in a language sense, he has that in how he puts rhymes together, how he puts bars together, as they say, and like how he crafts his rhymes. So it makes complete sense to me that he would be into jazz and other music, music that is played by people and has push and pull and isn't rote and strict.
yeah,
um and then to embrace it the way he has, like I think that's he's become one of my favorite rappers from his bootlegs, from his mixtapes back in the day. Like I love, like, yo, this dude has something different. And it's like there's a like we improvise with notes and chord structures and things. There's a improvisation that happens with language too.
yeah,
That I am a huge my one of my favorite writers. She's a friend, Imani Perry. Like she's crafted. She like sometimes the way she writes is just so beautiful. And people are like, what do you mean? I'm just like, man, read the sentence and the structure of it and how the words fit together and all of those things. Like I love that. So I feel that with Kendrick rapping.
yeah,
That was one of the things I love about Jay-Z too, like how he could tell a story and it's so clever and like, oh, double and triple entendres. And that's just like the same way as me listening to a Miles Davis solo. Like how do you get to that over this song we've I've heard him play a million times, All of Me or something, like a
yeah,
standard song, and he does this thing with it. We know the words, you know what I mean? But how he puts them together, that's the jazz to me, you know what I mean? The jazz, like that's
yeah,
the improvisatory part. Like it's just like how you craft it. And that's why I love Kendrick, because the way he rhymes, it's like you go back and the same thing. I'll go back and listen to a Branford Marsalis that I know from 95 or 7 or 8 or whatever. And like every time I listen to it, I hear something different. And that's how I feel about how he was like, oh, snap. I didn't realize he was referencing this
yeah,
and pulled this in from his other
yeah,
song. And, so um, I think that's just hip hop in general, though. Like I didn't realize this growing up because I wasn't really that verse in jazz, but like it is, I think, like the element of it, just coming up with putting words together on the spot, like real MCs do, and being to improvise that. Like Black Thought is a jazz musician to me. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Like, it's the same thing. Common, Most Def, like, they
yeah,
I've seen them with Robert, and they're like, "Yo, this that's why these 2 mesh so well because they come from the same place, it's the same root, and, it's just a different way of doing it's a different way of using the same science in
yeah,
my opinion, so, like, I love Kendrick and, like, how he, even when there's not much jazz in the song, like a song like Damn like on Damn or whatever, like, it's there
mm,
in how he talks and how he puts words and sentences and bars together, so
yeah,
I just love that connection through and that's why, like, I had, like, that 88 was a very big year for me, but it was a big year for hip hop too, EPMD and Big Daddy
mm,
Kane, and, all of these people
yeah,
had amazing records out. Rakim,
mm,
like, it was just, like and then when I got in high school or whatever, you had, like, Tribe and, and they were literally pulling jazz and, so
yeah,
those sounds get in your head, like, "What is that? How does that sound like that? Oh, that's a Ron Carter sample." You know what I mean?
yeah.
You learn later on or,
Yeah, it's
like
like bringing you back to where they got their
yeah.
influence from,
Yeah.
listening to the music, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just really a powerful thing. So, I hear jazz and Kendrick when it's not even in the track. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
No,
Yeah.
that's a good point. I didn't think about that, the improvisational element
Mhm.
of his actual
Yeah.
voice and his rapping, because
And then he has tone inflection
it's
and,
tone
yeah,
inflections, and
like
then sometimes, like,
different
he's on
characters and
beat,
yeah,
and then he's purposely rapping
yep,
off the beat, and,
yep,
like, he's not making a mistake in the
yeah,
recording, like, he's doing it for a reason to go back and forth, but there is an element of, like, it fits, but it also keeps you on your toes, and you're not really sure exactly
yeah.
what's gonna
And I
come
and
next.
sometimes it's just like a poem, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like over some
yeah,
music. Like that's one of the great things about you think about like somebody like Nikki Giovanni or other poets and writers is like, okay, wow, there's a formula, but you kind of come up with your own way to use the formula and make this original thing,
yeah.
Yeah, so
Here's this is a
I'm a huge fan. I'm trying to see if I'm gonna go see him and SZA on tour when they come through here in a couple weeks.
oh, you have to.
Yeah, I know. I want to go see it.
You could probably work the music magic and get some
We'll see.
access
I don't know.
passes
That
or
might be a
something.
tricky one for me to get tickets for. I do have success. I've gotten. I usually
There you
don't pay
go.
to go to stuff, but yeah, I'm gonna try and get into that.